A U.S. Army deserter who spent nearly 40 years in North Korea was court-martialed on November 3, 2004. In 1965, in order to avoid being transferred to combat in Vietnam, Charles Robert Jenkins decided to down 10 beers, abandon his unit while out on a night patrol in the Korean DMZ, and head north. The 24-year-old sergeant from North Carolina believed that the North Koreans would give him to the Soviets soon after capture, and that he would then be part of a prisoner exchange and be back in the US within a few months, where he would do a little time and then be released. Instead, the North Koreans took him captive and tortured him for 7 years under a kind of extreme house arrest along with 3 other US deserters. As part of their re-education program, they were forced to memorize the writings of Kim Il-sung, even though they hadn't yet learned to speak Korean. Eventually released in 1972, Jenkins was forcibly made a citizen of North Korea. He was given his own home and a job as an English teacher, but was still under constant surveillance and subject to occasional beatings and torture. He was also eventually fired from the teaching job, apparently because his thick southern accent was deemed useless to North Korean agents hoping to infiltrate 1970s America. In 1978, Jenkins started appearing in propaganda films, playing a diabolical capitalist warmonger who was the mastermind behind the Korean War. The role made him a North Korean celebrity, and when it leaked in the 1980s, became the first evidence his family had seen that he was still alive. In 1980, he was forced to marry a young Japanese nurse, Hitomi Soga, who had been kidnapped by North Korean agents. The couple would go on to have 2 daughters and survived a series of famines thanks to Jenkins' celebrity status and Soga's work teaching North Korean spies Japanese. In 2002, as part of a North Korean-Japanese negotiation, the North Koreans admitted to abducting Japanese citizens for the first time, and Soga was allowed to return to Japan, where she received a hero's welcome. Jenkins and their daughters remained behind. After 2 years of further negotiations, which included lobbying to get the US government to treat Jenkins more favorably, the family was released. Jenkins, then 64, weighed only 100 pounds and had lost his appendix, 1 testicle, and along with many scars, had the words US Army cut out of a tattoo with scissors and no anesthetic, and was suffering from a botched prostate surgery performed in North Korea. Of the 4 1960s US deserters to North Korea, he was the only one ever to leave. Jenkins could have faced the death penalty, but after his court-martial at a US base in Japan, he spent only 25 days in the brig and was released early for good conduct, later being demoted and dishonorably discharged. In 2005, he returned to the US to be reunited with his elderly mother and his siblings and introduce his children to their grandmother. He then returned to Japan, dying there in 2017, having spent the remainder of his days selling rice cakes at a local museum where the visitors often treated him as a celebrity. Though they had been forced together, Jenkins and Soga remained married, and the couple reported having a loving, deep relationship, crediting their survival to their bond, which was a bright spot in an otherwise dismal and at times horrifying existence in North Korea.